Disrupt Education, episode 1616, here with Deno Andrews. Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's jump right in.
Okay.
So you didn't go right to college from high school. You played some billiards.
Correct.
Tell me a little bit about that.
So I graduated here, OPRF, 1989, and I just wasn't ready to go to college. I actually tried. I went for about a half a year at Columbia College. I thought that I would go into their tech theater program because I was in technical theater here in the stage crew, and I just wasn't ready. And so what I did right after high school is I went on the road. I traveled the entire country, went all up and down the eastern seaboard, went up to the Northwest, and I played in billiard tournaments, and we had a family history of billiards. My grandfather was a champion billiard player, and I don't know, I felt like I needed a few years to sort of find myself or find my place in this world or find some purpose. I found that it was really good for me because most of the competitors and most of my travel partners were much older than I was, so I had great mentorship. I had people who were business leaders, entrepreneurs, people that were game changers in the nonprofit world. So having such role models that were older than I was and having sort of a mentorship, sort of mentor-mentee or preceptorship with them was just really valuable for me.
Yeah, that lasted how long? How was that?
That was about 8 years. Yeah, it was about 8 years.
And you met some pretty big names too, like was it Minnesota Fats?
Oh yeah, Willie Mosconi, Fats.
We're aging ourselves. But
exactly. Yeah.
So after those years and that mentorship, how did you transition into college? Like, how did you transition into the next part of your education?
Well, I felt like the biggest thing that I realized was that college was my choice. Like, I decided to go, not necessarily because I needed it. I had secured a really good job with a biotech company. I caught a great break, got into the company. I was one of the only people in the company that didn't have a college degree. And but then after a while, I started to notice that my learning ability was inhibited, and I felt like it was time for me to go to a higher learning environment. So I enrolled at DePaul University here in Chicago. Got into their business program, did a lot of business law classes, and also studied art history, not as an official minor per se, but just a lot of art history classes. And that helped me to really understand the world around me and history. And I was never good at history in high school, but after learning history through art history, it just opened up the world to me. So I think there was that maturity level that I needed to have before I could make myself do well in college. And to put it in the perspective, I was just an average student here at OPRF, and always did really well on tests, never did homework. I thought the whole thing was bullshit, and so I just never really did it, right? I just this is, I know how to do this. I can prove it to you on the tests. I get A's on all my tests. Why do I have to do homework?
Wow.
Well, because you have to as part of our program. I'm like, well, your program is stupid. It doesn't work, right? It's just not for me.
The true disruptor back in the day.
It was, yeah. Although in the end, I didn't get to make the rules, so my grades suffered as a result, but I didn't care, and I'm not suggesting that people shouldn't care about their grades, because you should, but at the same point, the learning in the experience of it and knowing that you know it is more valuable than than any of the homework scores, right? It's if you can do it, you can do it.
So if you go if you went back then, would you do it the same? Or what would you change now that you know what you know now, going through all your experiences, working with mentors, et cetera?
Knowing what I know now, had I gone back to high school, I would have skipped lunch in any study hall, and I would have graduated in 3 years so I can get the hell out of high school.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, because it just wasn't for me. And yes, they were great years, and I have friends from that time, but my place at that time as a late teenager was to be on the road. I needed to experience the world to understand the value of the education that I got here. And this is a first-class school, and yes, every school can do better, but we still do a lot of things right. And I was doing electrical work, carpentry work in the stage crew program. I had excellent mathematics instructors here, so I really learned a great deal, even though I was just an average student. When I went to DePaul, I spent the first year relearning everything I learned at OPRF. And it's one of the top business schools. So I really felt like even as an average student here, I got a better education than most places. But I do feel like the one thing that I wasn't prepared for was the real world experience. Because, in Oak Park, especially in Oak Park, we live in a bubble. And the idea that once you get out of this bubble, the world is a much different place. Like, nobody cares about you. Like,
Right.
nobody. You could be maybe if you're homeless or starving, there might be some people to care about you a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, just as a regular business person or a regular student, like, you're on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost feel like to better prepare kids for the real world, it would be good if they had an inkling of this leaving the high school. Because I feel like a lot of kids go to college and then they just lose it, right? Like, they have no idea how to be on their own. They have no idea how to deal with loneliness or meeting new friends or that anxiety of being in a new place.
Right.
And then what happens? Like, drugs, alcohol,
Right.
like dangerous situations,
Yeah.
right? And wow, this is I remember, like, my parents didn't have a problem if I drank wine in high school. And, I come from a Greek culture.
Right.
It's very normal. Other friends that grew up in Eastern or Southern European cultures, they were drinking beer at 16 or 17 at home. And when we got into the real world, like, we didn't struggle with that.
Okay.
And many of the friends that I did have that grew up in very strict households like that, they struggled with that in college, overcoming that ability to have whatever you want at any time and not being able to regulate it. So I think more real world experience would be something that
How would that look to you in a high school realm? Like, would there be like a gap year within the high school, or what? Do you have any idea how you would kind of frame that?
It's a good question. I don't know. I like the idea of a gap year. I think that it would make sense, but I mean, for me, it was a gap 8 years. So like, what do I know? So I don't know. I think that, and then the other thing is there's plenty of kids who do go on to a 4-year college right after high school, and they do plenty fine. So I think that it shouldn't be one way. Like, I think that the student's personality and life experience should play a large role in what that path looks like. So it shouldn't be, the regular path shouldn't be graduate from high school and go to college. And it also shouldn't be take a gap year or two and then go to college. It should be, what are you suited for? There's a lot of students here that are suited for, university, master's degrees, PhDs, MDs, whatever. And there's other students that they have an aptitude for mechanical things and mechanical engineering. And there's some that they just want to be hands-on, be a carpenter and, go into a union and build houses. And they're all valid and they're all valuable. And so I think the idea of setting kids up with the pressure that you have to go to a 4-year college right after you graduate is almost setting a lot of kids up for failure because they're just not ready for it. But I wouldn't want somebody to not go if they were ready for it too.
Sure.
Right? So I think the disrupt part is not to take away one structure and replace it with another, because that doesn't really fix the problem. It just changes the problem.
Right.
But yeah, I would love to see the school accept a broader idea of what you should do as a student rather than what's expected of you.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. We appreciate it, man.
That's
Thank
it.
you so
Wow, that
much.
was the
That's
easiest
it.
one I ever
It's so
did.
easy.
Perfect. All right.
Appreciate it. Deno Andrews, we're in the can, number 16 coming at you. Until next time, keep disrupting education.